Hey everyone, welcome to Prophecy Roundtable. Tonight we are going to talk about dark magic. Ooh, dark magic. What could this be about? Well, Joel Blackford is going to take us through some ideas and some musings that he has been putting together about something that could be like a 56-year election cycle black magic kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to what our intrepid co-host has to say about this. So, Joel, I mean, this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. You've definitely picked my interest. Okay. And, I know you have some great stuff for us. So, why don't we just get into it and why don't you go for it?
Okay. Can you? Oh, hi, Scott.
Hello.
Welcome. Doug, can you? There you go. Okay, thanks. And let me make sure that I've got my monitor going here. Yep. Okay. So let me go back. Whoop. One, two, three. So basically, what I'm saying is that I met with Dr. Bill Schnobelin, who's a friend of ours. He came on with us 4 months ago. He had a great show, and he says that he's feeling that there's something weird about 1968 and 2024. We've had assassinations during that year in 1968, two of them, Martin Luther King and RFK Jr. or RFK, and then this year we have Trump, but we have the same Chicago convention, and so this has to be addressed because it's just so bizarre. The connections are so weird. Now, after the assassination attempt, people are calling for us to repent about this. And so we know the verses. So let's just go through them. Righteousness exalteth a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. Sure, Proverbs 14:34. We should all be repenting after 9/11, right now, things like that. And also we know about Second Chronicles 7:14, which is if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin, will heal their land. We're not really doing that right now. The pundits are telling us that we're heading into civil riots and civil distrust and other events and things like that. Now, keep in mind the people that are doing the most for the Lord. I'm sorry that this is kind of busy, but basically, what I want you to see is this cute little lady on the left hand side has a husband and a baby. She's going to be spending 3 years in prison for praying and talking about Jesus' name at an abortion rally. Okay. Other people in the middle here, 5 years in prison for blocking an abortion entrance. Okay. And so, what I'm telling you is that if you read the Bible, if you're even Jesus, you agitate demons and you will start bringing these things upon you. So, basically, the five pro life activists on the bottom here went to federal prison for blocking Washington abortion clinics. So, the news is that the demons feed off blood and fear, and that's what we seem to be going into this year. And Dr. Bill seems to be correct. So it's been a busy time frame lately, just lately. Okay. So what we've got is three major bombshells. First, Donald Trump was shot at. Joe Biden dropped out of the race. That's bizarre too. Okay. But that sounds like 1968, and I'll show that to you. Kamala Harris stepped in. Well, I'm from Minnesota. Humphrey stepped in 1968 and he didn't win. Um, but a lot of people, other news is a lot of people are worried about their bills, that inflation is just going bonkers and our debt for America is going bonkers. And then also within the last week here, we had CrowdStrike go down. So it was the Microsoft IT outage. And so people are just on edge right now. Okay. So the first source was from the end of the American Dream, which is Michael Snyder, who was on a few months ago with us. Then on the right hand side, nobody knows about this, but China is being devastated by floods and drought and cyclones. Two cyclones are coming at China. Their Three Gorges Dam is ready to burst. If it bursts, probably 200 million people will be affected. Some will die, some will lose their farmland, some will lose their houses. Poor China. Pray for China too. I mean, it's just absolutely horrible. So we are in, if you're a John Haller fan, he's going bonkers with all the information coming in right now. It's just too much, too fast. Okay. Now, this morning I was listening to Bill Cloud. Many of you understand and love him and have listened to him over the years. Bill Cloud did a wonderful segment for about 26 minutes on America's uncivil war and what he sees is coming. And so it's America's uncivil war against God, shedding light on the cultural, societal, and political shifts that have led us to the spiritual battle. Bill explores the recent assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump through the biblical lens. wonderful guy. The problem is he's talking about repenting. And what I'm telling you is, unfortunately, I don't see repentance in our future. I see agitation. That's what I saw in 1968 as a little kid. I'm seeing it today too, guys. And so we need to repent. We should have repented after 9/11. We should be repenting now because this is a tough year. And we've got a lot of things coming up this year. Okay. So the even though I will vote for Trump, I'm an endorsed Republican 2 times over. I'm going to vote for him, but he is going to agitate, and they're already on edge. Okay, so Rolling Stone is asking, is he a false idol? Are the people, the Christian nationalists, the NAR, we call them New Apostolic Reformation people, are they turning Trump into an idol? Yeah, that's part of the problem. He's just a guy. He's just another president, and we shouldn't really idolize our presidents. Okay, he's not a Mashiach. He's a Meshach. He isn't. He was anointed to be the president before, and if he wins again, he would again. But we we don't need to worship him. And the problem is that just sets off the demons on the other side, and there are some. Okay, now there are some nice people on the other side, that are going to vote for Kamala, but there are also some people that just want to ratchet it up. And maybe you watched the demonstrations in New York and Washington the last couple of days here. It was horrific. So who am I citing? Once again, Dr. Bill Schnoebelen, friend of our group here. He's warning that the witches feel there's a 56-year cycle occurring. It's demonic agitation. They want to see 1968 one more time. And they know that there are others that will agitate with them. So I'm telling you, the demons feed off blood and fear. And Dr. Bill nailed this because he and I are both old enough. I was 10 in 1968. I remember it. And I'm unfortunately a political and historian junkie. I'm just a junkie on that stuff. I was reading Time magazine cover to cover as an 8-year-old. Okay. So that's my problem. So he's telling you there's a 56-year cycle and it's black magic and they're invoking curses. And so whatever we saw in 68, and I'll show you that in a couple of more slides here, it seems to be occurring again this year. It's just eerie, people. Okay. Now, on the other side, we have people that have warned us for years. This is Wilkerson, David Wilkerson, and I have a friend named Don that really is the guy that kind of pushed me forward on this one. Wilkerson said America will collapse and war will happen. Now, we don't know when. And same thing with Dimitri Duduman. I have met with his grandson, Michael Boldea. Great, great man. They have books, they have audio tapes, things like that. Wilkerson's book title illustrates his prophecy that the dollar will crash. He said he wanted to change the title. He thought about it too strong. He thought it was too strong, but the Lord told him the title was exactly what will happen and said, do not change that title. He said the title came from God. And so Wilkerson is saying that we're going to have horrible, horrible rioting in America. And you sense it. And guys, just because they're religious guys and they hear from the Lord and things like that, I'm telling you that even the regular pundits, and I'll show you that in the slides later on, the regular economic guru pundits that have their computer programs that monitor this, they're saying the same exact things. Okay. So Dudeman, he believes that there will be communists that will overthrow the center of America at some point in time. We don't know when, but it's just interesting. I wanted you to see the prophetic angle on this first. We don't know when. Okay, so now we're going to go into these patterns that we've been watching all these hundreds of years. So the first one is July 13th, 1863. We had the New York City draft. That was during the Civil War, and Lincoln was the president. We had riots, we had a massacre, it was nightmarish. Okay. Well, you move forward 100 years and you've got 1963, Martin Luther King, great man, wonderful man. During the summer, we had the riots there too. We had the riots basically from 1950 to 1963. So there's a weird pattern of 100 years with that. Okay. And then, and the sources I'm sorry, it's the Zen Education Company and then the Library for Congress on the other side. Okay, so then Lincoln was shot 4/14 of 1865. Kennedy was shot 11/22 of 1963. Not 100 years exactly, but close and similar. I'm saying there's some kind of pattern going on here. There's something that just occurs where America seems to get angry every 100 years or so, and especially every 56 years. Okay. So now we move forward to 1968. On 4/4 of 1968, we lost Martin Luther King, great man. We also lost RFK, Mr. Kennedy, Robert, and that was on 6/5 of 1968, and it just set off the year. I mean, as a little kid, I knew something was wrong. I was alive and I was aware when John F. Kennedy died, and so but this was even worse because we lost both of them within 2 months of each other, and we couldn't figure out why America was so angry. We had race riots, we had the Vietnam War, and it just got worse. So there's some weird trend going on there. Now, once again, LBJ was our president. He took over after Kennedy was shot in 1963, and then he pushed the Vietnam War harder. We had lots of bombing raids in North Vietnam, and he backed out in 1968 as they were coming to the convention in Chicago. And Humphrey from Minnesota ran as the presidential candidate. Well, the weird thing is, this is 2024, 56 years later. Biden is our president. He's stepping down, and Harris is taking over. And it's 56 years, and they sound the same. I mean, it's a weird little pattern. Okay. The 1968 Democratic National Convention in Chicago was just a riot, chaos, riots. It was amazingly horrible. Now, I was up here in Minnesota, and we had our protests up here. We had, horrible protests across the nation. Kent State, where kids were shot. We just had a nightmarish situation during that time frame in 1968, and I remember it. It was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And the poor Democratic convention, they just had this onslaught of people, and I want to claim it's demonic, and so that occurred, and then so Doug, can you pop it back? Oh, thank you. Okay, so basically, what you've got is just a nightmarish pot that starts boiling, and Chicago is already in rough shape. I mean, it's Murderapolis, people, and that's coming up. So pray for Chicago. August 19th through the 22nd. It could be nightmarish. It could be worse than 1968. But it's a weird trend. And I think Dr. Bill is right. I think there's something strange going on. It's not really the candidates, it's the anger. And it could be another issue called inflation. So basically, we had Ronald Reagan shot in 1981, 3/30 of 1981. I was graduating from college about that same time. And so it was just odd, but he survived. But it was a lone gunman, kind of a crazed young man, Hinckley, and then Trump recently here. We don't know if it's a lone gunman. He wasn't killed or anything like that, but it is oddly similar. I'm telling you that the Bible agitates, whether it's Reagan or Trump or anything like that. If you quote Jesus, you're going to agitate people. Or if you, I don't know, there is a weird pattern of agitation going on. And so I think you could throw up any candidate right now and you would have agitation. That's what I'm arguing. Okay. So once again, we have the JFK assassination. Was it a lone gunman? The problem is our FBI, our CIA, other agencies are always pushing the lone gunman. And I was really frustrated as a kid because they pushed this horrible Warren report on us, which said lone gunman, lone bullet, and it was ridiculous. And then now they're doing the same thing with this kid, this Thomas Crook, where they're pointing out that he seemed to head to Washington, D.C. and New York frequently. What's going on? We'll see about this, but the conspiracies should be going crazy because you're seeing weird connections between, what happened with JFK, which would have been, oh, why am I blanking on his name? It doesn't matter. Oswald. Oswald. Was he a lone gunman? Was there someone else? There's so many conspiracies. We're still running the Zapruder film to this day. It's just interesting. And then ex-DHS FBI official demands overhaul of Trump's shooting probe after colossal security failure. So at least we know that that's the case. But it is odd, people. I want you to just notice how weird it is. How there was one security Secret Service agent that was called off Kennedy because he wanted to be able to wave to people. And he was shot right after that. And then it looks like, based on Mike Adams, that there were multiple shooters in the Pennsylvania shooting, and Secret Service wasn't aware of what was going on. I mean, they had an open shot at the president, and the Secret Service was sitting in the building, not even doing anything. So Trump shooter studied JFK assassination. So I'm telling you, there's some weird patterns going on here. I can't say they're demonic, but Dr. Bill Schnoebelen is saying they are. Okay, once again, Kennedy, 1963, the Warren Commission, which basically said one mysterious bullet, magic bullet, went in through the side, out through the throat, then through Connolly, the governor of Texas, and then, through his leg too. I've shot a lot of bullets and a lot of rifles in my life, okay? It doesn't work that way, okay? It would be tumbling by that point in time, and well, anyway. Okay, and then on the side here, our Secret Service director resigns 10 days after man tried to assassinate Trump. So it's just interesting to note how the cover-ups are occurring, okay? Moving forward, I'm from Minneapolis. Weak men create hard times in Minneapolis. Back in 2020, we had the horrible George Floyd situation. Poor man, and I know I was an officer. I used to I was not a police officer. I was a security officer. And we were rough on the thugs, but he shouldn't have done what he did. And now he's in jail, but Minneapolis burned. Okay. That's what I'm sensing is going on right now, that we're setting up for another place to burn. Okay. So once again, we've got the Bible does agitate. It does, people. Jesus walked in and the demons were screaming at him. Okay. Unfortunately, Trump is an agitator. That's just what he is, guys. Deal with it. And the protesters are paid to agitate. There are agitations going all over the place right now. I think this is Washington, D.C. They painted a moss all over a statue there. New York, we've got, here's Washington, D.C. on the right-hand side, where they pulled down the American flag, pulled up the Hamas flag. We've got agitation going on right now, okay? And so that's Washington and New York, and there will be more, okay? So just get used to it. And we have politicians on both sides agitating right now. That's the problem. We seem to be in that time frame of agitation. And, I studied enough of the Civil War that I remember there was a lot of agitation. There was Thomas Nast. There were other people who were writing nasty newspaper articles. And so it turned into agitation. And so we have politicians doing it today. And unfortunately, cities burn when you agitate. Okay. Now, keeping in mind, again, Jesus agitated the demons. It's scriptural, guys. And he agitated the wicked. That's just how it works. So then there are other agitators too. They're the puppet masters. There's Soros, there's Schwab. I would argue they're exousion in the Greek, which would be humans that have power to puppeteer others. And so they are delegated powers. They are not elected. There's no oversight with them. And they just agitate. That's all they do. And they're puppet masters. And so, right now, the puppet on the right-hand side, where you pull the Biden head off, put the Kamala head on, it's still a puppet. So it doesn't matter who wins this election. There are people that are in much greater power than Trump or Kamala or anything like that. I would argue there are 3 top men in the world, 13 top men in the world, and 33 top men in the world. And they run the whole thing. And it doesn't matter who wins. And that's what seems to be occurring. And there's one other issue, and we'll take a break now. Basically, this seems like the third seal right now. Your dollar isn't going as far, and you will have this rapid inflation coming up, which will agitate people. And so this is where we're at. Rapid inflation. America seems to be sliding worldwide, and the debt is increasing. And so we're seeing agitation occurring just by your dollar alone, and what you can afford. So let's take a little break and bring you guys in here and see what you think so far.
All right. Well, boy, I'm not even sure where to start. Why don't we start with King Trump? I mean, that's in your slides there, and somebody mentioned that. Are you saying Trump is king, or what are you saying?
I'm saying that any of the presidents of the United States, since we dropped the atomic bomb, are kings. Okay. When you have the ability to nuke another country, so since Truman, they're all kings. They're the kings of the world.
And then you said Jesus is an agitator and Trump is an agitator. So are you are you drawing a parallel between Jesus
No,
and Trump? I mean,
no.
I know a lot of people do. They're suggesting that, I mean, the memes were going crazy, you know, like, well, you know, they've been going crazy for a long time about Trump, but I just think we need to be careful that we're, you know, we're really careful about what kind of parallels we're drawing here. So can you explain a little further what you mean?
My comment is that these are kings. Anybody that has total control over the world with nukes is a king. And so the United States since Truman. And then also, they, there is agitation that occurs. There are certain times in America when, well, I mean, we were agitated during President Carter. You know, I mean, we couldn't buy gasoline. You know, and inflation was going crazy. We had to sit in lines. We were angry, and so during the Civil War, we were angry, and we seem to be angry in 2024. And when we see Chicago coming up in August 19th and through the 22nd, it's going to be agitating, and the people that get paid to agitate are going to agitate even more. So
So
am I
who's
comparing?
paying these agitators? I'm really curious. How do
I'm
you
saying
know?
Soros.
How do you
Soros,
know? How do you know that? How do you know that?
because he bets on currencies failing, and somebody's paying for the bricks and other things like that, and I'm arguing that it's Soros. And you know, I mean, you would think a guy that survived through World War II and barely came through with his life would be thankful to God for what he accomplished. No, 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 no. He loves to ruin nations. He bet against the British pound. He won. It fell, and he was happy. And so there are certain organizations, and there's probably people above Soros. You know, I would say there's the 3, the 13, and the 33 that run the world.
Yeah.
And I would say those guys are puppeteers to Soros, but somebody's funding agitation.
Okay.
Yeah,
Somebody
I
in
mean,
the comments.
there's videos of these what the rioters in DC getting off on buses. I mean, you
Oh
know,
yeah, yeah,
that's
they're being
not.
bussed in.
It's very organized. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Do I know who it is? No, but someone is pulling strings to organize this agitation. And as far as Trump goes, you don't really need anybody to get. He doesn't need any help really to agitate people.
Yeah, I guess, you know, my critique would be that correlation doesn't equal causation. And I mean, I used to do the same thing. I did all this kind of stuff of putting it all together, you know, and you can correlate a lot of things, but it doesn't prove causation. And I think that's always going to be our Achilles heel. Because I mean, I was looking and looking, and in 2008, the dollar was going to crash. I mean, I was reading Zero Hedge and all these dudes, right? I was checking my sources, checking them twice, 3 times, you know, trying to find as many corroborating sources as I could, you know. So yeah, I know I'm once bitten, twice shy, but hey, you know, we just got to be careful, right? I mean, this guy's going to fall one day. I mean, I believe that, but we just don't know which day, right? So.
Okay, if demons wear masks, are the masks coming down, Doug?
I would say it's open and obvious right now. It's in your face with all the occult symbolism and everything. I mean, and again, there's so much indoctrination and propaganda. Like I've been on vacation, but this morning I just I record Morning Joe and I just listen to it. And as much as it agitates you with Trump, and I don't really care for Trump, and you know that, Doug, and pretty much anybody listening, to listen to them just talk about, oh, what a great speech that was by Joe Biden, and he's just doing this out of an unselfish act, and this is for the country. I'm like, do people actually believe the nonsense that that the mainstream media is spewing? I mean, how these individuals can get up and say that with a straight face, but it's almost like their job is just to spew propaganda, to stir the pot up, to make one side the villain. In other words, with MSNBC and that side of the media, you have to make Trump the worst human ever, and anybody that would like Trump or vote for Trump or that would be anti-abortion or conservative on their policies or whatever are just really bad people. And on the other side, it's just as stirred up. I mean, if you watch some of the comments on what used to be Twitter and X now, there's just pure hatred for what they call the leftists or the liberals. And again, this is all part of, causing this yin and the yang, the dark versus the light, the white versus the black. This we're just seeing this stirring of these tensions. Joel I think he's being tamed by calling it agitation. I would say it's much more so than that, at least in my lifetime. I was young during the Carter administration. I kind of might have heard something on the nightly news when it was once, it was only once a day about gas prices, but didn't really affect
bonkers. Guys, the lines were horrible. We hated Carter. We hated him.
Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, of course, if you start looking at any one of these topics, they're all complex, I mean, was it all Carter's fault, or was was OPEC trying to do something and maybe Carter got stuck in the middle? I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you start looking back and you look at actually Jimmy Carter's life, I mean, he did a lot of amazing things after his presidency. He did Habitat for Humanity for a good chunk of his life, so he seems like a man with good character, right? And I don't know, I guess I think they're very complex, and sometimes we kind of boil them down to these little memes and sound bites, and I think it's complicated.
Well, we start looking at, I like to say presidents are selected, and Carter and Obama and Clinton would be great examples of three individuals that essentially came from nowhere, and yet here they are being elected within a year. I mean, I can remember Clinton, and then obviously, and then Perot gets in and draws part of the vote away, and then Bush loses. So again, I just see the puppet masters controlling this, whether it's through manipulation, through the media, whether or not. And again, I don't see how in the world Biden won the election legitimately. But I don't know that he stole the election. I don't have any proof of it. I just think that he was the person to get us to this point. Trump was the one selected to really agitate the waters in 2016, 2020. And when he is selected in 2024, that's what I believe still. That what Joel is talking about, the rioting and the civil unrest in this country, if he wins the Electoral College, it is going to make what happened in 2020 look tame.
Well, yes, you're right.
And I believe that once he's in office and if there's rioting, I believe that's when there could be this crackdown and this. And again, I don't think that's going to quell anything. I think it'll just erupt even more in the cities. And it'll make 1968 look tame.
Yeah. So, I keep hearing, not from just you guys, but from, a lot of people that, this is unlike anything in human history. We've never seen it this bad. But let's go back to Jesus' time. Life sucked, and the Romans were not exactly your friends, right? And, the Jewish people wanted desperately to get out from under the thumb of Rome. And there's this guy named Judas. You might have heard of him. He was quite convinced, as a zealot, he was quite convinced that Jesus, being this amazing individual who obviously had powers, he was convinced that Jesus really should go into politics and that he should overthrow the Roman government. And I think we know quite clearly that Jesus chose not to do that. Right, he chose not to get involved, not to pick sides, even when he was asked, okay, well, should we pay taxes to Caesar or not? Right, he gives that classic answer, like, give me a coin. Whose picture is this? Caesar's. Okay, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. So, I think we're at a very unique. I mean, yeah, I guess it's a little bit unique for American history that I feel like we can get sucked deep into Christian nationalism. And if we're not careful, we can end up just like Nazi Germany, who wanted to make Germany great again. We want to make America great again. They wanted to get rid of the foreigners in their country. They wanted to get rid of the homosexuals in their country. They wanted to go back to family values. And to some degree, they did, right? When Hitler came in, everything kind of sort of got better. And they got rid of a lot of the riffraff, and they got rid of the people that were not so great and that were dragging the society down. But, we all know what was really going on, of course, much after the fact. So, I definitely think that history is repeating. I began seeing this several years ago. What I was seeing with World War I, we had a sharp increase in nationalism. And then, of course, World War II being basically a continuation of that whole saga. But obviously, a lot of angst in between. You had runaway inflation in Germany, right? You had all this call for, we need to get back to Germany and make Germany great again. The thing is, people watch Hitler like, oh, he's a monster. And of course, it's in German. Most of us don't know German. And so it's easy to write him off as being this crazy man. And we're kind of wondering, how did those Germans get sucked into this? Did you know that many, many, many Germans were good Christians, right? And Hitler was considered a Christian because he went to church and he was endorsed by the church and all this different stuff, right? So, this is what I'm just saying. We've got to be very, very careful about how we proceed. And, again, what's on the blue is kind of a bunch of wet noodles. But when I see what people are doing with Trump and they're idolizing him, and, we had Maria on some time ago, and she brought all those amazing memes, amazing, right? Of the outright worship of Donald Trump, calling him the second coming of Christ. I mean, I'm not making this up. You have billboards where saying, and the government shall be upon his shoulders. And there's a picture of Donald Trump. I mean, that's really scary, right? So again, I'm not telling people who to vote for. I'm not saying you should go for this side or that side. I'm just saying, whatever you do, be very, very cautious, because it's easy to get sucked in. In fact, there was a reporter who went to one of Hitler's rallies, and before he knew it, he found himself, putting his hand up and saying, Heil Hitler, and he's like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? Right. But it's so easy to get sucked into the crowd speak and this whole thing of, just being part of this crowd, and you're mesmerized, you're hypnotized. And I really think there is a hypnosis on our country on both sides, granted. Okay. I mean, when I look at the mess that we have, right, we've got, I mean, on the blue side, you've got people pushing LGBTQ rights. You've got transgenderism. I'm just like, what the heck? How did we lose our minds like this? I mean, it's crazy, and so then of course, people are going to push back, right? And so they want to get back to sort of these family values, and that's great. But it becomes so extreme, and then we start demonizing the other side that we can no longer have a decent conversation about it. And, we're convinced that the other side is absolutely demonic in every way, shape, and form. And of course, the other side can often think that about, whatever our side is. Okay.
Two wings, same bird, Doug.
Sorry?
Two wings, same bird.
There you go.
Again, this is the illusion of choice, a two-party system. And I see we have someone saying this is low IQ. They're obviously
let's just pull that out.
And again, if you think Trump is going to save America or make America great again, okay, let's say things do improve in 4 years, and I'm totally incorrect, and we're not at the end of the age. Well, the next Democrat that gets elected is going to reverse his policies. And then we're going to keep playing this game, and the things, and nothing changes. Nothing of substance ever gets done, except when there's a good crisis. And then like in 2001, after the after those terrorists just somehow bombed flew into the Twin Towers, and they just happened to find, one of their passports down the street or whatever. I mean, but then we get the Patriot Act, and so now we have the surveillance state. And so again, everything's in place now. And I don't dislike Trump as much as Doug does. I mean, if you held a gun to my head, if I lived in Georgia right now, or if I lived in a swing state, I might vote. I live in Alabama. It doesn't matter. Trump is going to carry this state 75%, and I'm going to write in. I might even write in Doug as president this year. He can get the first president.
Thank you, Scott. I think I'll write in.
Man, that's my way of protesting. But again, guys, it's not really going to change. And Doug's point about what we're seeing, and I'm not SDA, but you do not want the state to merge with religion.
That's true. That is
God
true.
God does not want to
Yep.
force people to choose to love him, accept him, obey him, and walk as Yeshua walked. When that happens, Zwingli and Switzerland, Zwingli, you Anabaptists, you guys want to get baptized? Okay, we'll baptize you. We'll go cut a hole in the ice and we'll murder you. So this was not just the Roman Catholics. This was not just the Church of England.
Yep.
Anytime the state starts legislating morality and legislating a particular brand of Christianity, it's not good. And so if what I believe will happen, and Trump is selected, and the NAR and the Seven Mountain Mandate, and they implement this type of policy, I believe a lot of Christians in America will be very, very happy. Yes, we're enacting these laws, we're cracking down. I mean, it's sort of like right now, like a tidal wave with all the craziness. It's like they're pushing it in people's face with the LGBTQ agenda. And kids getting transitioned at age 8 and 9 and dancing with drag queens. It's sort of like they're trying to anger people who really, it takes a lot to make you angry. And then you have the ocean going out right now, and it's building, and then the tsunami is coming.
Yeah, and because there's no middle ground anymore. You can't be in the middle, right? And I think that's the real problem, right?
Is that biblical?
In the middle?
I think it is. I think he's forcing us.
Yeah,
he's separating the sheep from the goats.
Well, yeah, but I mean, all I'm saying is, as an American, maybe just, I won't think Bible just for a moment, but just as an American, okay, like, can I just be in the middle somewhere? I don't have to go to this extreme. I don't have to go to that extreme. Just be a good neighbor, love people, be kind, and not have to have LGBTQ and transgender thrown in my face, pushed in my face. I remember some years ago at my daughter's middle school, I was at her basketball game, and there was some hullabaloo about some kid named Ryan, who apparently was a girl, but Ryan was on the girls' basketball team, and her mother. So Ryan's a girl, okay, but posing as a boy, right? But Ryan's mother, whatever her real name was, I don't know, but she was like, "No, you're a girl, okay, and don't call her Ryan. Her name is whatever." And then the coach kept calling her Ryan. I mean, it's ridiculous that somebody that gets paid barely over minimum wage as a teacher. I mean, teachers get paid so little. It's insane. It's if there's any teachers out there, you have my condolences. All right, because you should be getting paid a whole lot more for the amount of education you have and for what you have to put up with. But they're not, and they have to put up with all this garbage that's thrown in their face. Right. So, I mean, I get it, guys. You might say, "Oh, I can't believe that Doug is sort of like against Trump." Look, I don't like Donald Trump. Right. But I understand. I understand the agitation and the angst. I really do. So, again, I'm not telling you who to go for. I'm just saying, be careful. Just be careful. Weigh your decisions and keep in mind, as Scott's saying, Trump's not going to save us. And the blue side isn't going to save us either. Right. So what I would suggest, okay, I mean, we often bring up these topics and we're like, oh my gosh, it's almost the end. But, I was all excited when I was a pre-tribber, because I'm like, man, I'm out of here any second. I was so excited. The worse the world got, the happier I got, because I'm like, man, I mean, I'm just like looking up. I'm like, any second now, I'm going to get zaptured out of here, and nothing happened. And now my theology says, no, you're going to go through it. I'm like, man, I'm not in such a rush for the end, And so I think this is where we need to be careful. We don't know when the sky is falling. And our responsibility is to not get on this train or that train and say, this guy is our hero. He's going to save us. He's clearly God's man. I think this is where, we all need to start with repentance in our own hearts and our own lives, our own families. We need to, be praying. We need to humble ourselves. Man, I'll tell you, humility goes such a long way. And if you can't remember anything else, all right, Micah 6:8. right? He's shown you, oh man, what is good and what the Lord requires of you. Do justly. Okay, that means that I need to do the right thing in relation to you. And then show mercy. If you do the wrong thing in relation to me, I'm going to be merciful about it. Okay, I'm not going to demand that justice be done upon you. I'm going to show mercy. And then walk humbly with your God, right? Those are the three things, right? I mean, it's such an incredibly easy list of what we're supposed to do, and we complicate it so much. So all I'm suggesting is, as we're going into this election cycle, let's not imagine that red or blue is going to save us, and that red or blue is wherever you are on that, this is God's side. Remember when Joshua just crossed over into the promised land, and there's this dude with his sword drawn, right? And he goes over, he says, hey, are you with us? Are you with our enemies? And he says, no, I'm the captain of the Lord's hosts, and you're standing on holy ground. And Joshua just falls on his face, and he's like, oh my goodness, right? He sees Yeshua. Jesus is not on my side. He's not on the other side. He's on his side, right? So this is where we need to align with his values at all times. That's what we have to do. And I see us falling into this trap of red or blue, just like the Nazis. They're like, man, this is going to solve everything. Hitler's going to make Germany great again. Well, he did for a short period, and then it all fell apart. So anyway,
Click me back up and I'll go into the prophecy side.
You got it, man.
Slides. There you go. Okay. So let me make sure that I'm on this. Okay, good. And so basically why I'm saying that we need Trump right now, and this is a Joelism. So if you don't like whatever is being stated, blame me, not Doug or Scott. Okay. So I'm saying there's only one man on the planet that can touch Mohammed bin Salman. So keep in mind that King Salman is still the leader, but he's 88 and he's frail and he's about ready to die. MBS is the new guy coming up. Trump touched him on the arm. That's a death sentence for anybody. If you touch MBS, a Saudi Arabian prince, on the arm, just out of the blue, Trump walks by, smiles at him. I'm telling you that God needs Trump to move forward a few things as we move into the end times. Once again, these are Joelisms. But he did, obviously, MBS loves, Jared Kushner loves Trump. They are buddy, buddy, buddy. This is once again a Joelism, but I'm telling you that the world is saying we need Trump to be our savior, our Messiah. This is on the left-hand side. This is from England. They literally put up a TV screen, and everybody was kind of worshiping it, saying that Trump will give us world peace. Okay? Now, I'm saying that instead what it's going to be is division and agitation, because that's just the time frame that we're in, I think. Now, once again, this is Joel, not Scott or Doug. I'm saying that Trump needs to be there because he's the only powerful man on the planet, an alpha, that would start the red heifer sacrifices, restart the holy on the Temple Mount, and would authorize those things, because in 2017, he declared that Jerusalem would be the capital of Israel. And, everybody was afraid, oh, you can't do that. You can't say that. He did it. He didn't care. He's a bull in a china shop, but that's also, God likes that. So he's very similar to Cyrus. There is this weird anointed thing. And so once again, Cyrus was not a Mashiach. He was a Meshach. He was just anointed. And this is Isaiah 45, 1 and 2, where, God wanted Cyrus to do something on that exact day. He wanted him to dam up the river and walk into Babylon and conquer them when they were drunk. Okay. And so I'm arguing that I think Trump is the only guy on the planet that could pull this off. And so he's a lot like Cyrus. He's anointed to do something. And so I think he's going to win. And Doug hates this. So this is obviously just Joel, that I think he's in Revelation 17. He's just the seventh. Okay. There will be an eighth coming. And so I would argue that Biden and Obama are Biden, and they are the sixth. So if I'm wrong, I will apologize. If Trump loses, I will apologize, and I'll probably shut up for a while. But in this case, it seems like he's like a Cyrus, and Cyrus was there to bring the articles back to the house of the Lord, and Nebuchadnezzar had carried them away. It was time to bring them back and restart the holy. And so, this is Ezra and Nehemiah time. And so, thus says Adonai to Koresh, which is Cyrus, is anointed. So that's Meshach. those whose right hand he has grasped, so that he subdues nations before him and strips kings of their robes, so that doors are open in front of him and no gates are barred. I will go ahead of you, leveling the hills, shattering the bronze gates, smashing the iron bars. That doesn't make Trump our Messiah. That doesn't make him our God or anything like that. It just means that God needs to use leaders at times. And so I truly believe that in 1973, when Kissinger said, "Let the Israelites burn," and Nixon said, "My mom had a prophecy years ago," and he was a Quaker, and he helped Golda Meir. There are times when God uses men, and he used Nixon. And I would argue that Nixon was a king too, a very powerful king. Nixon won a huge victory in 72. He was gone by 73 or 74, whatever it was. He was gone fast. Okay, so keep in mind, you can be anointed to do something huge and be gone in 5 minutes. So basically, that's where I'm going. And so, Scott Doug and I would agree on this, that this will happen at some point in time. I'm saying that Trump might be the guy driving this. So we'll go to Ezekiel 36, 23 through 27. The nations will know that I am Adonai, says Adonai Elohim, when before their eyes I am set apart through you to be regarded as holy. For I will take you from among the nations, gather you from all the countries, and return you to your own soil. Then I will sprinkle clean water upon you. I'm arguing that's the red heifer. You will be clean because of the ashes of the red heifer. I will cleanse you from your uncleanness and from all your idols. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit inside you. I will take the stony heart out of your flesh and give you a new heart of flesh. I will put my spirit inside you and cause you to live by my laws, my Torah, and respect my ruling, it's probably Hook, and obey them. Okay, so that's Ezekiel 36. We know what that's between. We've got the prophets of Ezekiel 33, and then the separation of the sheep from the goats and things like that in 34. And 35 is Edom, and then 36 is this, and then 37 the bones come together, and 38 is Gog Magog and more Gog Magog, and 39. Then we go into the third temple, we'll call it. Okay, so basically, now, we have to be very careful about the prophets today, because Jesus warned us in Matthew 24 and many other places that there will be false prophets. I'm arguing that some of these guys muddle cat urine together with their prophecy. And one of them is this Brandon Briggs guys. So he has given so many prophecies over the years, and he's about 50% right. So be very careful as he moves forward, because what they do, and I listened to him today on a video, and I heard him, he was right, and then he was wrong. And he'd say, "Oh, well, that's something that I thought in my head." So the problem is, this is going to be huge. You're going to be listening to these prophets, and he's going to claim, "Well, I saw Trump get shot, and I saw him break his eardrum." And then he said, "Well, I just assumed, because if there was blood on his ear, that there would be a broken eardrum. So I just assumed that." It's cat urine. Okay. And so get ready for that, because it's going to be an onslaught of these cat urine prophets, because they muddle things together. This is where it's going to go. And they're going to try to capitalize on a leader like Trump, and it's going to get worse. So, Scott, go.
Yeah, quit even saying the word prophet, false prophet, charlatan, huckster. I mean, as soon as someone has one so-called "Thus saith the Lord" prophecy that does not turn out to be correct, they're a false prophet by biblical definition. This nonsense that God changed to what a prophet is after Yeshua's death and resurrection is just that. It is sheer nonsense. It is not biblical. If your God changes, you can believe that crap. But I mean, that's what it is. It is feces, what's coming out of the charismaniac movement and prophets. It's like, oh, well, I could probably, say enough things and maybe get a few correct. And I could have some crazy dreams and maybe one or two of them will come true, but it doesn't make me a prophet. I'm not getting visions, dreams from God and I don't want them. I'm scared to death. If I got one, he would say, "I want you to go tell everybody." And then, again, if it happens, I'm not going to say, "No, I'm not going to do that." But there's going to have to be some fleece put out 2 or 3 days in a row and mega confirmations before I would ever say, this is something from God. There's going to have to be some supernatural confirmation before I would ever say, this is from God. And if it turned out not to be true, then I'm a false prophet. And you should never listen to anything that I say again as far as prophecy. And that's why I don't deal in trying to be a foreteller. The primary role of a prophet was always forthtelling, calling his people back to repentance. And I think that the charismatic movement has totally ignored that part of the true prophet's role. I mean,
Yeah. Well, I think the NAR, the New Apostolic Reformation, with its huge mandate on taking back, our country for God and the seven mountains and all this stuff. I mean, look, let's just be candid. Our country was never 100% Christian. Obviously, we had, some puritanical good stuff, and we had some decent stuff. It wasn't all bad. I'm not saying that. But there was also, at the same time, there's always a strain of the Masons and, the Freemasons and all this kind of esoteric kind of stuff. And, a lot of our founding fathers were not exactly, upstanding kind of guys. And, so I think we create these little myths, right? That, man, like everything was just great in the 1950s, like if we just go back to the 1950s, well, there was a lot of racism in the 1950s. You still had Jim Crow laws. You had people getting lynched. I mean, it wasn't exactly all fun and games, but yeah, Leave It to Beaver was on TV and it seemed all great. And that was sort of wholesome and nice. So this is where we start to create this nostalgia of how great it was and how wonderful it was and how Christian we were way back when. And now look at us today. Look, I mean, okay, granted, some things are pretty bad, okay? But some things in some ways are better. I'm really glad that on the average, racism is generally down and there's a bit more equality. I'm not saying it's perfect, but we're getting there at least, okay? And you don't have books, things on the books. Hey, let's also be clear about this, guys. There was this thing called eugenics that Hitler was like, what a great idea. Okay, you know where eugenics came from? Right here in the good old United States of America, right? And the Supreme Court argued in favor that they could take away the rights of a woman, a white woman, mind you, to procreate because she was deemed unfit. Okay, now maybe she didn't have the highest IQ, but she wasn't some complete retard. She wasn't unable to care for her own children, right? And this happened many times of where they thought, look, eugenics, let's have good genetics, right? Let's get the people that are not going to contribute to the gene pool. Let's just remove them, forcefully sterilize them so they cannot contribute to the gene pool. This was happening in the early 1900s. Okay, you had a lot of people that were coming to America, right? The good old melting pot and all this stuff we have of Ellis Island. And we look back and it's such a wonderful time in America. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. There was a tremendous amount of hatred, racism. There was obviously anti-Semitism, but you had, a complete meltdown on the part of the white people about anybody who had a different language and a different color that was coming to this country. They're stealing our jobs as Americans, but you know what? We're all a bunch of immigrants who are coming here, right? So, we've kind of forgotten our heritage. We've forgotten our past. And then, the whole eugenics program, it was eventually, well, it wasn't officially outlawed until the 1970s, right? You still had these laws on the books that somebody could be forcefully sterilized against their will here in the United States of America. But that whole idea then spread to Nazi Germany, where before they started killing all the Jews and everything, they were killing the undesirables, right? They had this propaganda that was going on of, a good, strong, stout German boy who was carrying this decrepit old man, with a big nose. And it's like, why should we have to carry them? Why don't we just get rid of them? And so, of course, they sent them to the hospitals and then the camps. And then they started trying to find a way, how can we just get rid of these people, right? And then they had moving death chambers where they would take a van or an ambulance or something, and they would take the exhaust and then put it back into the chamber where they put the people in the back of the car, and they would, just kind of die. It seems like they did it all. If you like Germans, they used to go at the right speed. Of course, the driver's like, oh my gosh, I'm killing people. So then he would speed up, and so that it didn't work right because he wasn't following the formula. Right. So then they had to find another solution. How do we get rid of these people? Right. And all of this started here in America, So let's cut the crap. Let's stop thinking that we are such an amazing, godly country and God chose America and all this nonsense of where we think that we are the chosen country. And we've got to stop equating ourselves thinking, well, we're like almost the second Israel. No, we're not. No, we're not. And you know what? I'll tell you this. So I've been teaching through the book of Ezekiel. God's like, you know what? This temple, it's going down. Jerusalem, going down. In the book of Jeremiah, he says, do you think I really care about this city? No. Remember that my Ark of the Covenant was in Shiloh for 400 years? I mean, 400 years. That's a long time for the Ark of the Covenant to be in a place. And people thought, oh man, Shiloh's untouchable, right? And of course, you remember that the Israelites took the Ark of the Covenant into battle against the Philistines. And they're like, we got the secret weapon. God's on our side. And guess what happened there? They got routed. And the Ark of the Covenant was then taken. It was captured over to the Philistines. Of course, it eventually came back. But, you know, it wasn't the secret weapon that they thought it was. You think you have some talisman or something. We think that we're untouchable because we're America and we're such a godly country. You know, look, as long as we're being godly, God's like, cool. But we stop being godly. It doesn't matter what side you're on. Doesn't matter what flavor, which color. He's like, I don't know, you know? And so just as Shiloh went away, so too did the temple. And they thought that was their magic bullet. You can't touch us. We got the temple here. God's like, I don't think so. In fact, in chapter 10 of Ezekiel, he's like, I'm leaving, guys. I'm packing my bags and I'm going. It's like one of the saddest chapters in the whole Bible, right? God was committed to the people of Israel until, you know, they just kept doing heinous after heinous thing. And finally God's like, all right, I'm out of here. And it seems like nobody noticed, right? God takes off. He kind of goes to the threshold and he kind of waits there a minute. He's probably like, hey, is anybody noticing I'm leaving? Nobody watches. Then he goes to the outer door and he's like, hey, I'm leaving. It's like, you know, you're getting divorced or just about, and you're kind of telling your spouse, hey, I'm leaving now. Do you want to try to stop me? No. And so then God goes to Mount Scopus, right? And he's hanging out there and nobody's noticing. He's leaving. And so if he can do that for the country that was in a covenant relationship with him, you think he won't do that to us? Oh, he absolutely will. So again, this is where I'm saying we've got to be so careful that we don't idolize our country. We don't idolize our leaders. And some of the things I have to disagree with you on there, Joel. But it's okay. I'm just saying, let's have a broader view. And the person that thinks I'm an idiot because I'm comparing Trump to Hitler, I don't care. You know, I mean, whatever, you know. But I've studied enough history. I've studied Nazi Germany. I've seen the parallels. Right. And all I'm saying is that you've got to be very careful, because if you were a German at the time and you loved your country and you wanted the best for your country and you wanted, you know, German jobs to get going again, you wanted the clout and stature of Germany to get back. Well, then clearly Hitler was going to be your guy. Right. And so we can get deceived. If we think we're not going to be deceived, man, we are a bunch of fools. Right. And maybe this is one of the most important talks we've ever had about the end times, because it's really exciting to look at all the bad guys over there. We can look at the Satanists. We can look at the LGBTQ. We can look at all these other groups and say, yep, they're the problem. But we can be deceived. Right. And we know that from Scripture, because it says that even the elect, you know, could be deceived. You know, does that not include us? I mean, come on. Right. So we've got to be on guard that we are following Jesus and not a man.
Well, the Kingdom Now movement is totally unbiblical. I mean, they believe they're going to take over the nation and the world for Jesus, and they're going to, you know, it's going to be a utopia. This is exactly playing into, I don't like to use the term Antichrist, but it's exactly, he's going to come as an angel of light. Mm-hmm. I can see him using Christian nationalism or a utopian global ideal with some fairly good values. You know, maybe some little guy that wears a funny hat over at the Vatican is no doubt going to be involved, because he's already been named the high priest of all religions. I mean, again, people, we're talking about America right now, and we're talking about Trump, who just got nominated as his VP. What religion and faith is Vance. You know, look at your Supreme Court.
What is Vance?
They're all Catholics.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
And again, this is, if you go back and you read at least some of what the founding fathers said, and they were very, very much worried about Rome getting their sticky fingers into America. And I forget who said the quote, but about the Jesuits but again, Walter Veith has some excellent documented programs. You just got to take him with a block of salt when he starts talking about E.G. White. So if he starts talking, great controversy, just move along, the investigative judgment. But as far as the research into what Rome has wanted to do and what Catholicism, they want to be the spiritual leader of the world. And if you just read what comes out of the Vatican right now, anybody can, it's pure ecumenical. Like anybody can have faith in Jesus. You don't even have to believe in Jesus to be a Christian. You can be a good Buddhist. You can be a good Hindu. You can be a good Muslim. You can be these things. And so that's what I see, forming as this final harlot religion led up by the Vatican and Christianity. And again, I believe what we're seeing in America is ultimately the puppet masters, the puppeteers, because they're not puppet masters. They're like the head puppets that just think they run this world. And all the pieces are getting put in place. I just see this as being part of this.
I think so too. It's prophecy.
Sure.
I see it.
It's prophecy. Somebody was asking about the NAR and the Seven Mountain Mandate. Did we? Maybe we need to clarify
want to cover it?
Did we? Well, I thought I did, but maybe. So just
in
case
be
people
more
don't know.
specific.
So the new Apostolic Reformation and the Seven Mountain Mandate. Basically, they say that we need to take back these 7 mountains, okay, which are 7 spheres of influence. So that would be what? Education, entertainment, government, finance. Okay. And so the basic idea is that when we have Christians in place in all these different positions, then it's going to be glorious, and essentially Jesus is going to come back. It's basically a form of post-millennialism. Okay. So, I had a debate with a post-millennialist once, and I commended him because I'm like, look, what I like about you guys is you're trying to make the world a better place. I think that's awesome. All right. But I also think it's foolhardy to think that somehow we flawed humans, right, who have our errors, we have our biases, we have our, the things, our own just, idiosyncrasies and all this different stuff, that somehow that we're going to get into these places of power, and then we're going to make this utopia. So that's kind of what Scott's just saying. So that's what we find very dangerous about the new Apostolic Reformation and the teachings that come out of that. And there's a lot of people that are pushing this whole idea. You often find them on TV, and that we can somehow, get there. But I don't think we.
I would state on the NAR and the Seven Mountain Mandate people that you're watching a lot of churches fall right now, and they're charismatic or hyper charismatic, and they're also the pastors are using prophecy to bed young women, and they're married, obviously, so they're using church funds to pay for hotel rooms and things like that. So those guys are falling very quickly right now. I monitor that through Julie Roy's and through Christianity Today, and then the Wartburg Watch. And so what I'm noticing is that we used to see a pastor fall per year, and then there was a pastor per month, and now it's a pastor per week. And these are the worst of the worst because they harm little girls, Yeah, one of them was a 12-year-old girl. Just come on, lay off, guys, okay? You've got a wife, take care of business that way. You don't need to abuse these children. But the problem is they're using prophecy to do it. And so it's funny that God is taking them down first. And judgment begins in the house of the Lord. Well, guess what? These guys consider themselves to be the closest. They're going down the first. So Doug, pop me up again and let me finish out with a couple more slides here, and then we'll discuss it. So basically, we've got some false prophets. I believe in David Wilkerson. And Wilkerson, I think there's no pee, no poo in what Wilkerson is talking about. I think he was a weeping type of a prophet. And he gave us things like a teen challenge and really great messages over the years. People hated him. So once again, this agitation, he agitated people to choose Jesus. And so wonderful, wonderful guy. He put out The Vision in 1973. That's my copy right there. And then he put out a couple of other books. He is saying there's going to be total economic confusion striking Europe. And now in the video itself, when he's speaking, the sermon, and it's on Sermon Index, it's Germany first. And Germany is falling. They were counting on cheap Russian oil. That's ended. BASF is going down the drain. That's pretty much their whole economy, because it's so huge. And so Germany is falling apart. Then Japan. Japan is having horrible problems. As I mentioned, if you're afraid about China right now, China's got so many problems. Oh my goodness, their population is crashing. It's like God is throwing these horrible environmental storms at them every day of the week: droughts, floods, the Three Gorges Dam breaking, economic issues. They can't trust their bankers. They can't trust anybody. They're falling apart. Poor China. Pray for China. So then after Germany, then Japan, then the United States and Canada, other nations shortly thereafter. Okay, so Wilkerson, Vision, 1973, worldwide recession caused by economic confusion, nations or nature having labor pains. We are noticing that. I noticed that. Okay. I truly believe that our magnetosphere is thinning. It's thinned about 25%. So this week, I'm watching for auroras, guys. I almost went out a couple of times this week. These are minor storms. These are not even X level storms. They're M level, and they're kicking out enough for it to hit Minnesota, which is amazing. I've been alive 65 years, and I haven't seen many auroras. Well, I saw some May 10th, and that was not a big storm there either. Okay. Now, there was an X-14 blast that went off the backside of the sun this morning or yesterday, and that would have rocked our world. Okay. Not yet, but nature is having labor pains. So what you're going to notice going forward is you're going to have storms over here, droughts over there, lightning over here, something over there. You're just going to notice something. It's going to look like it's psychotic. That's how things happen. It's labor pains. Flood of filth, baptism of dirt in America. Look at your TV. I unplugged my TV set in 2013. It was so disgusting. So all of my news comes from what I want to watch. Okay. Rebellion in the home, yes. Persecution, madness against the truly spirit-filled Christians who love Jesus. And that's even Roman Catholics, people. There are some good, godly people in the Roman Catholic Church. I don't know why they're still there, but they're there. Okay. Now, this one seems bizarre, but he says there's an urgent message in 2009. For 10 years, I've been warning about fires in cities. There are many people that have talked about that. Wilkerson is one, Dudeman another, that there will be blazing fires. There will be riots. We've had glimpses of it, but major cities across America will experience riots and blazing fires, earth-shattering calamity. And so we'll see. I don't know when. He says not far off. That is the problem with getting messages from God. We all are really lousy at what soon means. Okay. And so deal with it. So this is Michael Baldea talking on behalf of his grandfather, Dimitri Duduman. He was his translator. Dimitri had an incredible ministry in Romania, delivering Bibles and being tortured by Romanian leaders. And so he's saying America will burn at some point in time. And he's saying Russian spies have discovered where the nuclear warehouses are in America when the Americans think they have peace and safety. So that's what I'm wondering about. Are we going to push for a peace process, and that peace and safety in the middle of the country? Some of these people will start fighting against the government. And so we don't know when this would occur. But I'm telling you that both men, Wilkerson and Dudeman, are honorable men. And I'm hoping that these visions are correct. But the main thing is, we don't know when. We don't know when. Continuing on, so Wilkerson on the left-hand side, the punishment of America. That America right now is racing towards judgment. Already this nation is facing punishment. And you could say just for abortions alone, 60 million babies. We would have great workers right now, and we wouldn't need to let people into our country if we would just let our babies live, but we don't do that. We deserve judgment for that. So 365 days of darkness. This is from oh goodness, I'm blanking on the site. But anyway, 90% of Americans could die through starvation and societal collapse if and this is the U.S. Congressional Advisory Board on Homeland Security. So basically, if we lose power, and I'm telling you that we could lose power, and it'd be the strangest way possible. It would be an EMP from the sun, and it would literally turn us dark, and that would be horrific. Oh, you guys are back on? Okay.
We are back. Well, again, a zillion things could happen, and we'd all be in big trouble, right? I mean, but again, there were all kinds of signs for massive EMPs, unlike the world has ever seen, 12, 14 years ago. I was tracking it all, man. I mean, I was doing my homework, okay? I was tracking it, and, we were going to have the worst of the worst, and Zero Hedge was telling us how the wheat crop was going to fail, and the dollar was just on the very brink. And here we are, I mean, so again, a lot of things could happen. I hear you. I hear you, Joel. I mean, I get it, right? So we're looking for the signs.
April.
Weird things are happening. But again, I really urge caution. One day the sky is going to fall. And you know what? I have a feeling when it does, none of us are going to really expect it. I think we're going to be like, oh, wow, that happened today. Like all the signs that I was looking for didn't happen. Remember the first coming of Jesus, and all the smart guys, the scholars of the Bible, I mean, they had so many things when it came to the Messiah. I read the Talmud, which is a great book to read, by the way. I might add that. It's got a couple issues, but it's got great stuff in it. And the rabbis, I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are so correct. Like they're like, he's going to show up around 4,000 years after after creation, and then after Messiah comes, the world is going to be left as an orphan. And I'm like, wow, like you guys are on the money, right? But then Messiah came, and guess what? He wasn't what they expected, and so they missed him, right? It was the riffraff, it was the average people, the lay people. I'm not a scholar kind of person. They're like, this Jesus guy, he's pretty cool, So we've got to be careful, very careful, because when I see a lot of that stuff that you're posting, I roll my eyes because I'm like, okay, whatever. Here's another dude. He's saying that's going to be the end. Man, it's amazing clickbait. I mean, to be honest, I'm
actually
almost
it doesn't
jealous.
sell.
Maybe we should use more of the clickbait, because it gets eyeballs on there, but it doesn't necessarily lead you anywhere, and it keeps you in this heightened state of fear. So, again, I really, I don't want to be a fearmonger. I was doing that for years. That's what I was going down the conspiracy rabbit holes, and people loved it, man. I'm telling you, I was a lot more popular before. When I was a pre-tribber, I was very popular. I was making a lot more money, and it was great. Okay. But I got to this point, I'm like, I just don't really think it's true, the pre-trib rapture. And I don't want to be a fearmongerer, because I don't think that is my mission in life, is to cause fear, right? So now this show, what we're trying to do is bring a little bit of awareness. If we can get people to pray, to be kinder to their neighbor, maybe to, be nicer to their spouse or to their son or to their daughter, or to treat an employee well, or a fellow colleague, if we can be the people that are doing the things that Jesus told us to do. What did he tell us to do? Love God and love people. And you know what loving God is mostly about? It's mostly about loving people, right? So this is where we've got to be careful. I mean, at the Way Congregation, we've just narrowed it down. Like, what is it we're all about? Love God and love people. Like, that's what we got down to. So I'm like, what? It's that simple. And we keep complicating it with all these things about the shape of the earth and how you pronounce God's name and when the second coming is going to happen and all this stuff. And I really believe that we could be going the wrong direction. I think what God wants us to do is to love other people.
Well, and again, I do believe you're once bitten, twice shy. And this is not fear. Look, I never even start leaning up in my chair. Do I seem like I'm fearful right now? We just got back from vacation. I'm going to play golf tomorrow. Tonight, I'll read the Bible. I will probably listen to a teaching later on this evening, and I'll play a game of NCAA EA Sports 2025 football. that I went out and bought an Xbox for. And again, I'm not thinking that the sky is falling tomorrow. This is going to be a process. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm not going, other than the repentance part, Doug, that's the part. Things are aligning. It has almost been 2 days, unless our calendar is just whacked. You talked about the Talmud and the Jews and how they understood that Yeshua would come after 4,000 years, and he did. And I believe Genesis 1 is prophetic, and I don't believe Revelation 20 and the seventh day is 1,000 years. That's why I am at a high level of belief, not thus saith the Lord, Jesus is definitely going to come by 2035. But there's a difference between denying what we're all seeing with all the pieces sort of being in place and warning others and warning. And again, my wife will tell my wife, you sound like my wife right now. Sometimes she's like,
oh, thank you, brother.
Like, no, she'll go like, you tell this to your kids, you tell this to, maybe some people in her family and others, and they just look at you like you're crazy. And I said, I don't care. I have believed this since I was a child. Nothing is changing or weakening my conviction and my belief. It's only getting stronger with what's happening. This rise in Christian nationalism, this perhaps marriage between the church and the state that might happen should Trump be empowering, and we see this backlash. It'll appear good at first. People will love it. Some of the people that were posting, against you and your dislike for Trump, and you being correct there, Doug, that what might happen with a personality like Trump and with this people using putting him up on a pedestal, almost idolatry. Yeah, again, if that happens, we just need to watch. As long as we're watching and not preaching fear, and
it's not date setting.
Yeah, and again, I have a window of time, but if it doesn't play out, I will never be on record as saying Yeshua must come by 2034, or else I'm going to lose my faith. I'm not.
Well, I'm not really talking to you, Scott. I'm talking to the people out there in the ether that are posting memes on Facebook. There's a whole thing about, Trump is now anointed because his right ear had blood on it. And it's just like, guys, it's so moronic, like
I have their fun, Doug.
They're reading their Bible. I'm not going to get into it. Actually, that one I had to get into. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so stupid. Right? But yeah, it's dumber than dumb, right? It's dumber than dumb. But they see what they want to see. So I'm not only talking to you, Scott. I know you're all chilled and everything. I'm just saying, look, I think we as people are looking for the return of Christ. We've just got to be careful because we don't know. Okay, that's our bottom line. We don't know. We can guess, and I think that's, it's okay to have sort of windows. I'm cool with that. But I think what I want to offer to our faithful audience here is, okay, so now what do you do? Okay. When I was into the conspiracies, it's like, and again, I don't think they're all wrong, but even if I could figure out who did 9/11, if I knew 100% who was responsible, what would I do with that information? Okay. So, if we could give you guys all of the correct information, what are you going to do about that? All right. And what I'm suggesting is the answer is to love people. Okay. And to be humble, right? Again, Micah 6:8, right? Do the right thing. That means you doing the right thing, not demanding others do the right thing, but I do the right thing. You do the right thing. And if I should happen to bump into you, then show me some mercy. If you bump into me, then I'll show you some mercy. And all of us together, we walk humbly. But what happens is once we feel like, we have the winning formula and we know who the Antichrist is, or which side is the Antichrist, which side is working for the devil, and clearly our side is all for God. Then we start to do heinous and terrible things, right? And people get killed, right? This is why I get really irate when I hear fellow Christians and sort of Torah, Hebrew roots, Messianic kind of people slamming the Jews and saying that the rabbis are going to be the ones that are going to cut off heads during the tribulation. I'm just like, what are you talking about? I'm like, do you realize that these kinds of words have real world consequences, right? It may not be me or you or the next guy, but there's somebody out there that's going to hear that message and they're going to go do something because they think it's the right thing to do to, sort of spread the kingdom of God or whatever. And they're going to start killing Jews. I mean, this can get real serious really fast. That's why I just want to use caution. I want to use a lot of caution because, we can start thinking that we're holy rollers and we're on this great mission from God, like the Blues Brothers, and nobody can stop us. And God's like, yeah, go for it. And then before you know it, we're worshiping at the idol of power instead of loving people, right? So
if they're trying to agitate us, don't let them agitate you. And that's what they want to do. They get ratings off it. They get money off agitation. Yep. So from our standpoint, I'm saying when you see these things occurring in the future, don't get agitated, people. It's part of Bible prophecy.
I have fun agitating my Roman, my secular college friends who just, they're so obsessed about this right now. And that's fun to agitate them, but we've known each other for 35 years. These aren't just
you're just ribbing each other. That's different. I mean, that's,
These and I'm just having fun with them,
Yeah.
But they're like, I almost want Kamala to win just so you'll be wrong, but that would be worse. So they're like, it's like a daily text string, and they're just so frantic over this election. I'm like, guys, this really doesn't matter. In the long run, this doesn't matter. But
Bible prophecy is going to move forward, guys. And we're not exactly sure how to interpret it, but right. I'm telling you, I think we're coming up to a point of peace and safety when there really isn't peace and safety.
And
that's a good word. That's a good word, Joel. That's a very good word, and I think that could be part of the deception, right? Is that, you start thinking, well, our team won, so we're all good. It's peace and safety.
Oh, yeah.
And then, man, you've given us a ton to think about. I mean, it was, that was a fire hose right there.
Real quick, and this may not be everybody's cup of tea, but Doug and I are going to have a discussion, a biblical cosmology discussion, in which we are taking the position of biblical cosmology. And so is our opponent, Sean Griffin and Ken, and I forget Ken's last name. So as part of the debate rules, it's going to be August 18th at, I think, 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. I didn't let them steal it and say that they're the biblical cosmologists.
You're talking about FE.
Yeah, no, we're going to discuss whether or not Scripture, meaning Genesis through Malachi, Matthew through Revelation, no Enoch, no Jubilees. That's another debate. And we're just going to talk about what Scripture has to say about whether it even says the earth has a shape or not. And no science, no observation other than sunrise and sunset and the sun going down, because that's in Scripture. And I think we all can agree that no matter what model you have, the sun doesn't rise and it doesn't set. So it should be hopefully it'll be a good discussion, and Doug can control himself in this discussion.
He's been burned on that too.
Yeah. Pray for me.
I
will. Well, this was fun, guys. Joel, thank you. You gave us a lot to chew on. It's fantastic. And everyone out there, we love it when you guys tune in. It's awesome. We really do appreciate your comments and questions. We go through them. We really do. And we can't put them all up, obviously, but we do our best to get the ones that really seem pertinent to what we're talking about. And so wherever you fall on this topic, it's okay. All right, that's fine. All I'm suggesting is look to Jesus, okay? Because ultimately, he's the one that we serve. All right, and if you fall this way or that way, okay, that's fine. But make sure you keep your eyes on the true King. Right. And if we can do that, then I think we can weather this storm, and maybe we can keep our country going for a little bit longer. That'd be nice. Right. I'm all for that. All right. So, let's stay in prayer. Let's do justly. Right. Let's love mercy, and let's stay humble. Okay. Because there's a lot we don't know. All right. Hey, if you want to sponsor this show, you can go to patreon.com/Doug Hamp. You can give any amount you want. So thank you. Big shout out to the patrons. It really, really does make a difference. So thank you for that. If you haven't gotten Regenesis code, all right, that's my very best take on how it's all going to play out. Okay. So pray about that. I want to make that into a TV series or Netflix or something like that, so that we can really reach people with an exciting non-Christian movie as to what's going to come, or maybe a TV series. All right. And you'll see when you get into the book, you'll see what I'm talking about. So check it out. If you don't want to go to Amazon and buy it, that's cool. It's right here on Amazon. Just put in Regenesis code and I'll read it to you. Okay. I'll even read you to sleep. Okay. If you need to, someone to do that for you. So go ahead and check that out. Love it if you guys would share that. I certainly give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So go ahead and do that. Till next time, God bless you guys, and make sure to stay in the Word.